This is not a very good day for all of us to really contemplate. It's a day that most of us would always like to avoid, and most all the year we avoid this day. And society really helps us out for that. There's plenty of stuff to amuse us. There's plenty of things to buy and to participate in so that we can kind of excite ourselves and avoid the pain and avoid the suffering. As a matter of fact, most advertisement is to avoid suffering and pain. And so here we come as Christians, and reluctantly, I think, we come to this day, and there's a part of me, and I think a part of all of us, that would like to kind of rush on through it. Because we know what's going to happen. We've been here before. And so it's always nice to get to the end and go to the end where we know everything is going to work out. However, tonight we have to realize that sometimes things just don't work out for some people. We live in a world where things sometimes do not work out. And we know plenty of people who are in all sorts of situations where things are not working out very well for them at all. As a matter of fact, some of us in here, it could be many of us in here, are in that situation. Tonight we have to look at pain and suffering as much as we want to avoid it. And I see it happening tonight on two levels of which we have to look at it. First of all, the awful level of realizing that sometimes, and many times, we are the cause. Like it or not. Now, obviously, we read this passion, and we've heard it many times, and, I can kind of put myself in the situation. It's fun to say, crucify him, but I says to myself, as an educated person now, as a spiritual person, I would say, well, of course, if I was back in time back then, no, I wouldn't do that. I could not participate in that because I know what's going to happen. And you know what? I'm just not like that. But just by me saying that, just by me knowing, saying, hey, I know I could never do that, in my own arrogance, I add to the suffering of the world. And it comes that easily and that subtly in our life. Oh, certainly there's bad people and there's bad things, people harming people. And obviously we know that. And that's easy to spot. But for us to spot in our own selves how we contribute to the crucifixion of Jesus and to the crucifixion of His people by sometimes what we say and what we do. And it can happen in some of the most easiest ways. And what I mean by this is that whenever I think I've got it figured out and I know what is right, and then I am ready to pass judgment. And think about this. How many times have we passed judgment so quickly? So quickly about people. Sometimes we hear about what's going on. This person did that and this person did that. They should go in jail. They should get the death penalty. Something bad should happen to them. And I am ready in a moment's notice. It doesn't take me too long to pass that kind of judgment. I just need a few facts. And the rest I'll make up, I'll speculate, whatever. I'm ready to say, crucify him. And it's that easy. Especially when I hold on to my arrogance. That I know what is right, I know the law, I know the rules, and by God, you better go by them. You better play by them. Therefore, I add to the suffering and the misery that is in this world. And we face that today. And we look at that. And yet, okay, so What are we Christians to do about that? How are we then to take care of all this pain and misery? Well, first of all, obviously, we realize how we contribute to it. But then, here comes the second part. Take a deep breath, because this is the rough part. And this is the hard part of Good Friday. Just as Jesus went before his captors like a lamb led to the slaughter or a sheep before the shear, he was silent and did not open his mouth. We are called as followers of Christ to embrace the suffering and the misery and the sin that is in the world, and we are to embrace it and walk with it. Now that doesn't sound very nice, but we are to follow Christ. And Christ went all the way to the cross for us because he loved us so much. Therefore, we are to do the same. Through his suffering, my servant shall justify many, and their guilt he shall bear. And this is exactly what Jesus did. Through his suffering, Jesus justified many. He says, okay, I'm not going to condemn you. I'm not going to call lightning down. I'm not going to destroy you all. Instead, I am going to go all the way so that maybe, just maybe, you'll become a better person. And that is exactly what we are called to do. Through our suffering, we, the servants of Jesus, shall justify many, and the guilt we must bear. Whoa. This means then that we do take on the suffering. Yes, bad things happen. There is evil in this world. And today Jesus says, you come with me to the cross. Just as Jesus was nailed to the cross because of what the sins that we've all committed in the past, so too we now are called to go to the cross and take this cross with us. But why? It's very quite simple. If we dare follow Jesus, we get to see each other in a whole different light. Instead of looking at people through rules and regulations, and once again, looking through my arrogance of how I think the world should be or how I want the world to be, and when I do this and when I look at the world this way, there are so many people I step on, so many people I don't see, all the pain and suffering that I cannot even see because of my own blindness. If instead we embrace the suffering and embrace the cross, we start to see each other in a whole different light. And therefore then, we can then start ministering to one another. We see each other in our pain, in our suffering, and in our joy. And then we are able to embrace one another in a whole different way. Jesus' message to us is quite clear this evening. It's something that we would like to avoid, but know is something that we embrace. And as we go forth for the rest of this Holy Week, but even for the rest of our lives, let us go forth looking at the pain and suffering of others, not to run from it, but instead we walk toward it. And we suffer with those people. And when we do that, we become more Christ-like and we become more human because we see each other as Christ truly sees us, each one of us a child of God.